Oh yeah!
There's nothing quite like the Mario Strikers series. There's just something about seeing your favorite childhood heroes being bowled over, blown up, and body slammed into electric fences that never quite gets old. And now, 15 years after the last game in the series, Mario Strikers Battle League is switching things up more than ever before on Nintendo Switch, including new moves, equipable gear, and an increased focus on online play. But can it live up to the series' legacy? Well, let's find out in GameXplain's review of Mario Strikers Battle League. When you get down to it, the Mario Strikers series consists of two core elements: Waluigi and Daisy, baby! So where the heck is Daisy, Nintendo? Okay, so the two things I'm actually talking about are the intense arcade-style action and the ridiculous over-the-top presentation. And when it comes to the presentation, Battle League is mostly on point. Even though it does back away from the gritty, run-down look of the previous two games, it still retains most of the charm that the series is famous for, being full of pissed-off looking characters and ridiculous reactions. Now sure, it doesn't go quite as balls to the wall extreme as the previous games did. Rest in peace, Waluigi's crotch shop. But there are still some absolutely wonderful character moments here. Like Peach having to calm herself down after being scored on. The game even takes things to the next level, so to speak, by extending the personality beyond what we've seen before. Such as how each character has a bespoke kickoff animation. Like how Rosalina slowly floats a ball to the ground, or Waluigi lying down. Heck, every character even has a unique pose for each of the 4 starting positions, which is a fantastic level of detail. Unfortunately, you'll probably never see them because everyone skips the opening cutscene online. Stop it, everyone! Stop it! Unfortunately, all this extra animation does come at the expense of the amount of goal celebrations, with each character only having 2 of them now instead of the usual 4 to 6. So it's not going to take long at all before you start seeing repeats, which is exacerbated by the fact that there are only 10 characters in the game at launch, which is even fewer than the first game had and half that of the Wii one. And I really can't stress this enough. Where the hell is Daisy? Okay, now Nintendo has already confirmed that more content will be added to the game, which means it's probably only a matter of time until she's here too. But it just feels wrong not having her around at the launch of a new game in the series that arguably put her on the map. But hey, at least we still have Waluigi, who's a god among men, and even a god among gods, you beautiful, beautiful creature. In a fun twist, every arena is actually 2 separate halves conjoined together. It's a cute idea, but with only 5 themes so far, all of which have 0 impact on the gameplay, the novelty wears off quickly. Battle League takes a back-to-basics approach when it comes to the overall gameplay. Gone are the unique character abilities, stage hazards, and insane 7-point goals introduced and charged. And in their place is a renewed focus on the core soccer action, for the most part. And as a huge fan of the first game, I actually appreciate the simpler approach, as it mostly avoids the gimmicky goal fest that the Wii version could evolve into. But Battle League is far without quirks of its own, because for better or worse, this game is more technical than ever before, and has a much steeper learning curve as a result. In addition to shooting, passing, tackling, and deking, you can now charge tackles, which is crucial for taking on heavier players, tackle teammates to give them a boost, which I'm so bad at, on top of perfectly timing passes and shots, all of which demand precise positioning on the field for maximum effectiveness, especially when it's a field as small as this one. Even as a Strikers veteran, I found myself getting confused about the controls, as my muscle memory did not translate at all here. Although, in my defense, splitting normal passes and lob passes into 2 separate buttons certainly didn't help matters. Even after spending plenty of time with the game, using the A button to kick just feels wrong. And the game regrettably doesn't allow you to customize the controls at all. The overall pace feels very different to past games, especially with how tackles and kicks basically all need to be charged now, and how sprinting is strongly discouraged by giving you far less control than before, and it all makes the game feel a bit less snappy as a result. It's not inherently bad, but it definitely feels off from what I'm used to. And then there's the Hyper Strikes. Oh, the Hyper Strikes. So these are effectively this game's version of the Super and Mega Strikes from past games. Only this time, you have to collect a Hyper Orb first, and any player on your team can pull it off. Once you have the orb, you have a limited amount of time in which it can charge up an uber powerful shot for a chance to score 2 points. But anything less than perfect timing gives your opponent's goalie a chance to block it by mashing the A button. On paper, Hyper Strikes sound like a pretty cool idea, creating a second focal point beyond the ball itself. But in practice, I found them kind of annoying as they detract from the core action. The random timing and placement of their appearance means it's mostly luck of the draw whichever team gets to it first, especially when it spawns directly on one of the players. But even when that doesn't happen, collecting them can be a surprising pain in the butt, as swapping characters always puts you in control of those near the ball instead of the orb, which means it's often left to your computer-controlled teammates to collect it for you. Except they often act as if they're allergic to the thing and run in the opposite direction. And then there's the fact that even when you do collect it, it encourages your opponent to play keep away with the ball until your Hypershot power-up disappears. It all just feels like a needless complication, and if the goal was to reduce the amount of Hyperstrike attempts in general, I think there were probably better alternatives, like say having a rechargeable Hyperstrike meter. Now, I'm not going to lie, pulling off a Hyperstrike still feels pretty great, especially as some of the animations are absolutely bananas. And you've gotta love the Waluigi tribute to Mario Strikers Charged. But the thing is, every single Hyperstrike takes about 15 seconds or so, or even up to 30 if your opponent forces you to watch a victory celebration. And they severely impact the pacing of the game. So, on top of being random and encouraging bad sportsmanship, they also take excruciatingly long. Thankfully, Hyperstrikes can be turned off for private matches, but when it comes to online matchmaking, well, you're stuck with them. Items work a bit differently now too, as you now have to collect them from item boxes that are randomly dropped onto the field, some of which are color-coded as their team exclusive. And it's yet another thing you have to keep track of and make sure you collect, as using items like shells, bombs, or mushrooms are often the only way to ensure that you'll be able to create the space to pull off a Hyper Strike. Now, if that all sounds like a lot, well, it's probably because it is. Between the sheer amount of players, items being fired, item boxes dropping onto the field, and Hyper Orbs suddenly appearing out of nowhere, all in a teeny tiny little field, it's a constant battle just trying to comprehend what's even happening. I often struggled keeping track of both my player and the ball, especially when Toad's dumb head looks just like a ball. Oh come on, you've gotta be kidding me, game! And it's all compounded when playing with 2 or 3 other players on the same team, as the player icons all share the exact same color and look nearly identical, which is a problem that the original game avoided 20 years ago by giving each player their own unique color. So when everyone and everything converges on one spot, which can happen pretty often with Hyper Orbs and item boxes, well, good luck on keeping track of who you are. All of this visual clutter and lack of clarity often makes playing the game more frustrating than fun. And just in case the game isn't complicated enough as is, Battle League also introduces a brand new gear system, where you can unlock new equipment to wear that changes your character's stats, like tackle strength, running speed, shot power, and more. And some of it is actually pretty funny looking. But I'm gonna be honest, the last thing I want to do in an arcadey sports game is compare stats on the menu. I just want to play the game. And luckily, you can pretty much ignore the gear entirely if you want to. Although, your online opponents might not, which could put you at a disadvantage. Speaking of online, I'm happy to say that we've come a long way since the days of Mario Strikers Charged, which could turn into a completely unplayable slideshow at points, whereas Battle League pretty much runs without a hitch. But there can be significant input delay at times, which seem to happen more frequently with 3 or more players. And that can be a pretty big problem for a game that often relies on precision timing for perfect passes, perfect shots, and hyper strikes. Plus, it just doesn't feel super responsive when it happens. Now, if you're playing online by yourself, you can choose to partake in either one-on-one battles where you each control an entire team, which is generally my preferred way of playing both online and offline, or you can be paired up with a random partner to take on another team of 2. But even more exciting is the fact that the game supports 8 players for the first time in series history, both locally and online. The catch though is that, in order to play with 8 players online, you have to pair up with a friend on the same system to be matched with 3 other teams of 2. Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer for solo players. Finally, as the title Battle League might suggest, you can even create your own online clubs that up to 20 people can join in total, where you then go and take on other clubs to compete for the most points over the course of a season. But regrettably, there weren't enough people playing during the review period for me to test this out, but it seems like it has potential to be neat. Now, if you're more the offline type, there is a campaign of sorts you can play through either by yourself or with up to 3 other local buddies, in which you take on different computer-controlled teams in a double elimination tournament. Now, to be clear, there's no story or cutscenes here at all, and I personally don't find it all that fun to take on the computer alone, but I had a decent time when I teamed up with some friends. Okay, so we're nearly at the end of the review, so let's get real for a second. It feels a little weird reviewing a game that a lot of you have basically already played quite extensively, as the online First Kick demo offered a shockingly great look at the final game, providing access to almost everything available outside of gear, offline play, and a few other options. So however you felt about the demo is probably a pretty good indicator of how you might feel about the final game. which in my case was often confused or frustrated. The more demanding technical controls combined with the visual mess that is the playing field just left me feeling annoyed. And once the glow of the game's wonderful presentation wore off, I couldn't ignore the fact that I just wasn't having all that much fun. Which became even more obvious after I went back to playing the first two games, as they just feel better, with overall simpler gameplay, snappier controls, and more impactful hits. But, and stay with me here, after sinking quite a few more hours into the game, it has started to grow on me. I'm getting better at reading the cluttered field, and I'm finally adjusting more to the game's pace and moveset now that I've gotten over that's not trying to replicate the same experience that I grew up with. So at this point, I'm left feeling mixed about Mario Strikers Battle League. I've definitely had fun, but mostly after a lot of frustration too. But I do hope that I'll continue to warm up to it and maybe even eventually like it. But is that worth the amount of time and frustration I felt before reaching that point? I don't even know if I would have invested that much time in the first place if I didn't have to review it. Ultimately, Mario Strikers Battle League is a chaotic mess, but one that can be fun if you put in the time, especially if you turn off Hyper Strikes. And with that, thank you so much for watching GameXplain's review of Mario Strikers Battle League. And of course, make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Battle League and everything else Nintendo Switch. We'll catch you later. Bye everyone!